April 14th in the year 2000, one of the weirdest moments in the history of professional wrestling ever went down. At the end of the story, when we finally get down to it, a WCW wrestler wrestled a WWF wrestler in an ECW ring where the ECW championship changed hands. If you go into this knowing nothing, that is one of the weirdest moments that you could ever think that would ever happen. As I was growing up back in the day, you would buy the non WWF or WCW magazines, and they always have like dream cards about what would happen if Hulk Hogan wrestled against Ric Flair. What if Ted Turner and Vince McMahon kind of like put down everything aside and just gave the wrestling fans a dream card of what they happened. And when you look at what happened on this ECW show, it honestly was beyond crazy. In the year of 1999, ECW was going through a whole lot of changes. They were getting their Spike TNN deal at the time, where basically they were going to be put on national television on cable. Their show was honestly going to be on Friday nights, or maybe it was Saturday nights. It was a night that honestly was a very, very bad time to be on. Almost like the early days of TNA, when they were on the sports network, and it was just always on at random times because of sports games that were on in your area. They really couldn't tell you what time the show was going to be on, because almost in every market it was going to be ran at different times. At the same time, they got this deal. The Dudleys, as well as Tazz's deals, came up. Two of the biggest stars in ECW, and they both ended up signing with the WWE at the time. There was more money to be made. They were big, huge free agents at the time, and the writing on the wall was out there. It was just done. A lot like in the early 2010s, Ring of Honor. Every time that they lost a big name to TNA or to WWE, they always found a way to find the next star. They just kept rolling it over, star after star, no matter who left them. ECW was honestly almost the same way. They looked at Japan. They brought in a wrestler there, Mike Awesome. Mike Awesome was a huge dude over in All Japan Wrestling. He wrestled as the Gladiator, a big dude, a monster, must have been close to 7 feet tall, ripped all the way through, hard-hitting action, could go out there and almost do anything. It's not his debut in ECW, because he honestly had a few runs going through the company before, but in one of his first shows coming back for ECW, he shows up at, I believe, Anarchy Rules. He wrestles against Masato Tanaka and Tazz and wins the ECW championship. He was a really good champion. He was a marquee guy for them. Him and Masato Tanaka, they have their matchup at the One Night Stand, the ECW reunion show. They were foes pretty much all the way through. And although Awesome, he won the tag titles. I remember he beat Raven and Tommy Dreamer in order to get the gold. He was one of the main guys in the company. Although we all know the story about what happens with Paul Heyman. Promises were made, promises were not delivered. Money was owed, money was never coming. And when his contract came up, ECW, Paul Heyman, thought that Mike Awesome would just sign a new deal because of the fact that he had made him the champion. He was the number one guy in the company. Everybody wants to be the big fish. But Mike Awesome said, hey, you're telling me you're going to pay me all this money and you don't deliver. And he went out and he signed a contract for WCW because of the fact that ECW was not following up on their promises of their payments, and everything always had a fishy story. And in the end, he was the one always getting screwed. On one episode of Monday Nitro, he comes out, surprised, to help the new blood The new group of guys led by Vince Russo and Eric Bischoff. It's a big, huge surprise. They never refer to him as the ECW champion, but he's referred to as Mike Awesome, his same name he's used in wrestling his whole time. And, because of what had happened with Medusa dumping the WWF Women's Championship in the trash in the lawsuit, he ends up not using the ECW Championship on TV in any way. He just comes out there and does what he has to do. Mike Awesome, I still really don't know why he does this, but I think it's the fact that WCW was scared that they were going to get screwed. And they were going to get some sort of a lawsuit for bringing this guy in, even though they had him under contract and he did not have an ECW contract. Or maybe they just knew the wrestling business and knew that it was the right thing to do. They ended up sending him to Indianapolis in order to wrestle on one of the ECW on TNN shows where he was going to drop the ECW championship. And ECW knew that he was coming to do this, and they had to pull some wild card up of their sleeve. And they basically thought the one way that they could screw over Mike Awesome, because they were upset at him at the time, and probably to get the most eyeballs onto their company of like, what the hell is going on? They asked for a favor from Vince McMahon, and they're able to use Tazz for one night only in ECW. Tazz comes back to make his big return. It's a huge surprise. And they ended up wrestling. It's a really, really short match. It's minutes long. Mike Awesome doesn't want to sell. He basically doesn't want to go down to the floor almost at all. Tazz has to take him down. There was bad blood all over. We've all heard the shoot interviews from RF Video talking about how Mike Awesome was not welcome in the ECW locker room. A lot of hurt feelings from him being their champion, not, giving a notice, not letting anybody know what was going to go on. Basically, everybody's just sitting at home watching Nitro, and all of a sudden, their guy shows up in the company. If you're going to leave, but at least let us know, and at least, can, drop the championship. So our, federation that we helped make you a star can keep rolling on. It just doesn't make sense when you just lose a guy out of the blue. But Mike Awesome, he shows up at the show. He gets dressed in his car. He ends up coming to the show with Doug Dillinger, WCW security, in case anything was going to go bad with the fans or the wrestlers. He has like the Doug Dillinger. Doug Dillinger is probably a bad mofo, but honestly, when it comes down to it, he's Doug Dillinger, and I don't know really what Mike Awesome could probably protect himself better off than Doug Dillinger could help him. But he ends up having to come in through the stands, where he just comes in basically the front door and comes down, jumps the guardrail, gets into the ring. Tazz comes down. Huge surprise to the people of Indianapolis. They don't know what they're seeing at the same time. But really, really short match. Mike Awesome drops the title. As soon as he drops it, he jumps the rail and he's walking right back through the crowd, walking out the front door to the car and driving off to Nitro. From there, pretty cool storyline. Tazz ends up bringing the ECW championship to SmackDown. Wrestles a really, really good match. Probably his best WWF match against Triple H. Tommy Dreamer is in his corner, even though the Tommy Dreamer is going to face him at the next ECW pay-per-view. Dreamer ends up beating Tazz, and then as soon as he beats Tazz, it gets challenged by Justin Credible. Justin Credible beats Tommy Dreamer. Tommy Dreamer is sort of like the hometown boy of ECW, pretty much the heart, the blood, the soul of the company, becomes the champion and has like no moment because of the fact that Justin Credible beats him. Justin Credible sort of came from a surprise place on the card, almost being right out of his tag team with Lance Storm, to him to become a main event guy that is the champion. That kind of like was like, whoa, what are they doing? And that gave Justin Credible a huge push to carry ECW pretty much until the dying days of the company. So, hey, really, really big surprise. Mike Awesome, Tazz, WWF versus WCW in ECW. Who would have known?